to Coach Steve Academy. This is Suellio Almeida. We're going to see my lap with the Porsche Cup at Sebring. The lap time was at 2:02.0. We're going to see the entire lap, and then we're going to talk about corner by corner. Alright, so going right into this first corner, we want to use two things as a reference. The first thing is actually these two marks here. I like them because they're very close to the braking zone. I pretty much use them as a reference for downshifting to fifth. And my turning point is more or less actually this little change in direction in the wall. I want to be as close as possible to the wall. As you can see, I'm starting to brake here. I downshift more or less here. So you can see I'm downshifting right on top of that reference, and I'm turning in right here. Actually turning in like some milliseconds before the cup because the car takes some time to respond to that. And then from that, I'm turning in, then downshift to fourth. Now I'm just waiting for the car to turn in as much as possible. And I want to get back a little bit early on power, but I still want to get as close as possible to the wall and aggressive power to make the car, to keep the car rotating. And then we go all the way to the outside. Make sure you use only this dirt here. Do not use this one because as soon as you touch this dirt, it actually pulls the car to the right and you end up not having enough time to come back and you get an off track. So here I want to really bring the car as early as possible to the left to then turn to the right and then align to this white line here so I can brake and be pretty much on a straight line. If you stay here, you end up being thrown to the middle of the track here, and your next corner is going to be half a second slower. So just make sure that you bring the car early to the left and then go to the right to align and then brake hard. I use this as a turning point here, the last cone, and then I want to use the very end of this curve only. You see the inside, ignore, and here you want to use it. I upshift to third. As soon as I get back on power, it makes the car rotate a little bit more. Then I want to attack this curb quite aggressively because I want to bring the car as much as I can to the right here. And then light braking on second gear to make the car rotate. And then back on power. I avoid this curb here. I ended up hitting it a little bit, but it wasn't too bad. The car didn't bounce bad. Generally, if you hit it a little bit more than that, it really makes the car bounce and you lose a lot of exit speed. And then here, all the way to the hairpin, I'm going to start braking when this patch starts. The darker patch here on the track, and then my peak pressure is more or less at the first set of cones here. So you can see that the car actually travels a lot between the initial pressure and peak pressure. And then from here, just downshifting, turning in a little bit here on second, and then down to first to make the car rotate more. And then as soon as I get back on power, I go to second for an easier rotation and throttle and acceleration. And then you can actually use a little bit of this dirt here. In this lap, I didn't need to because I got back on power a little bit late, but you end up, it's kind of compensates. If you get back on power and you get the dirt, you end up losing a little bit of speed on top of the dirt, which compensates the fact that you got back on power earlier. If you get back on power a little bit late, you end up not using the dirt and you get a little bit more acceleration here, which again, it's the same. It's very similar. Then for the next corner here, I'm going to brake at the beginning of this first set of cones here. Then turning in second gear, trying to aim only for the yellow line. I ended up going up on the curb a little bit, but it was just a little bit. The car didn't go unsettled because of that. And then on this one here also, you have the choice to go up a little bit. Just make sure you land still on the yellow line, because if you go up pointing to the white line, the car actually bounces and it's easy to lose the rear. You see, just a very gentle bounce there, nothing too bad. And then here, make sure you keep bringing the car to the left, because you really want to align the car as much as you can to being parallel to this white line. As you can see, it's actually impossible to be parallel, but you want to bring the car as much as you can to have a better braking positioning angle. And then here, I like to keep fourth gear, and then finally downshift to third and turn in quite late and try to get back on power here. Try to avoid this curve. I also hit a little bit, just a little bit, and the car bounced. I probably lost some hundreds here because I did touch that. Ideally, you want to be on top of the yellow line. And then here, aggressive throttle, a little bit of dirt is okay. And then here, cross this curb as much as you can, because you want to align the braking for this one here. And then by the time you start braking here, you are as parallel as possible to this white line. Then down to third, and you try to cut as much as you can here. Make sure you test this in practice, because there is a slowdown here. So you want to figure out how much you can cut. This, for example, was not a slowdown. As you can see, the center of the car is still on top of the curb. So that's my reference there. Then you want to cut this one and kind of clip the left tires on the curb. It really pulls the car, makes the car rotate a little bit more. I don't know if you can notice it. As soon as I go, boop, a little bit more rotation to the left, which allows me to open up a little bit more here. And then back to trail braking, same thing. Center of the car on top of the curb will not give you a slowdown. This was pretty much the limit. If I used a little bit more than that, I would have gotten a slowdown there. Then back on power aggressively, let the car go all the way to the outside, and all the way back, it's totally fine to use a little bit of the grass. Just make sure you don't have the center of the car on the grass. And then for the last corner, I like using, let me see from the cockpit view. I like using this. It's difficult to see because of the sun, but as you can see, we have these darker patches here. I'm using the end of this big one here as a braking reference. As I'm actually braking a little bit earlier, but my peak pressure is more or less there. And then I'm downshifting aggressively to keep the car rotating, and then patiently, then back on power and upshift to third for some extra rotation. And then light hands. Light hands allow the car go all the way to the outside. You have a lot of room to use. Don't keep turning more to the right, because it's very easy to lose the rear there. And there you go. This was the 202097. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next week. Bye.